So we're diving into this whole movement of supporting Muslim-owned businesses.
Yeah.
And it seems like it goes way beyond just, hitting up your local halal grocery store. You brought a ton of interesting stuff to look at today, research articles, even audio notes. I see you've been busy. But let's start with the foundation here. You've highlighted this concept of ummah. What is that all about, and how does it connect to all of this? Yeah. So ummah is really at the heart of this whole movement. It's this idea of a global Muslim community, almost like a brotherhood, that goes beyond borders and nationalities. It emphasizes this shared responsibility and support. It's actually beautifully described in that article you have there, the one about Islamic economics. They talk about how it's this sense of unity and interconnectedness rooted in faith. There's even a verse from the Quran, 49.10, that compares believers to siblings. Wow, that's really powerful. Okay, so it's about this deep sense of community and shared responsibility. But how does that translate to actual economic impact?
Basically, it becomes a call to action. It's about consumers actively choosing to support businesses owned by their fellow Muslims. They see it as a way to empower the community from within, to foster self-reliance, and ultimately to have more control over their own economic destiny.
So it's about keeping money circulating within the community, but it's more than that, right? It's about building something larger, something that empowers from within.
Exactly. It's about building a more equitable and just economic system. And, this idea of economic empowerment through ummah is not something new. Remember that audio note you had? The one that mentioned Surah Al-Ma'idah 5.2?
Yeah, I think I remember that.
Well, it emphasizes the importance of cooperating in righteousness. And that includes economic cooperation. It's about Muslims working together to build a more prosperous future for themselves and their community.
That's incredible. So is woven into the very fabric of the faith. Supporting Muslim-owned businesses almost becomes an act of faith in itself. It's about claiming agency and building a more self-reliant future. That's powerful stuff.
Yeah.
And this concept, this drive for economic empowerment, it's changing industries as we speak. So how is this drive for economic empowerment actually playing out? What does it look like in the real world?
Well, take a look at the modest fashion movement. It's a prime example.
Right, I've seen that exploding lately.
It's huge, and it shows no signs of slowing down. Brands like, Mona and Shukar, they're killing it right now.
What's driving their success? Is it as simple as meeting a demand for modest clothing?
It's more than that. They're offering something that's both stylish and aligned with Islamic values. They're proving that you don't have to choose between your faith and fashion, and the market's responding. The global modest fashion industry is worth an estimated $277 billion.
Wow. Okay, that's not a niche market anymore. That's a powerhouse.
Exactly, and it goes beyond just clothing. Halal beauty is another great example.
I see you have a note about Mercy Cosmetics and Shade M Beauty. What are they doing that's different?
Well, they're tapping into this growing demand for halal-certified beauty products. These are products that are free from ingredients that are prohibited by Islamic law.
Okay, so it's about knowing what's in the products you use and making choices that align with your beliefs.
Right, but it's also connected to this broader trend of conscious consumerism. People want transparency. They want to know where their products come from, how they're made, and what values the companies behind them stand for.
And that seems to be spilling over into other industries too. My notes mentioned something about halal-certified gadgets. What does that even mean?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting development. It's a newer concept, but it's gaining traction, especially in the tech world. Basically, it's about applying the principles of halal to the production and consumption of technology.
So like fair trade coffee or ethically sourced clothing, but for gadgets.
Precisely. It's about ensuring that every stage of a gadget's life cycle, from the sourcing of raw materials to the manufacturing process, adheres to Islamic guidelines. Things like fair labor practices, environmental sustainability, avoiding materials sourced from conflict zones.
So it's taking those ethical considerations we've been applying to things like food and clothing and expanding them to include the tech we use every day.
Exactly. And this is where companies like Iman Tech are stepping up.
Right. I have them in my notes. They're developing tech specifically for Muslim consumers, right? What does that look like in practice?
Well, they're creating things like prayer apps that connect travelers with local mosques, Islamic educational platforms, financial tools that comply with Islamic finance principles.
It's fascinating, this idea of weaving faith and values into the very fabric of technology. But wouldn't catering to a specific religious group like this limit a company's reach?
That's a good question, but what we're seeing is that it's not about exclusion, it's about representation and filling a gap in the market. For too long, Muslim consumers haven't seen their values reflected in the tech they use.
So it's about creating products and services that resonate with a community that's been underserved.
Absolutely. And the interesting thing is that these companies, while catering to a specific audience, are often appealing to a much wider base.
Because their values are appealing to a broader audience.
Exactly. People are drawn to the ethics, the transparency, the commitment to social responsibility. And that's a powerful message. It shows that you don't have to choose between your values and your bottom line. In fact, they can go hand in hand.
I love that. You can stay true to your values and still build a successful business. It's amazing to see how this is changing the game. It feels like it goes beyond just representation, doesn't it?
Absolutely. This is about rewriting the narrative, challenging those tired stereotypes that have been around for far too long.
Right, like the idea that Muslim communities are just passive consumers.
Exactly. This movement is showcasing Muslim entrepreneurs as the creators, the innovators, the drivers of economic growth that they are.
It's about owning the narrative, shaping your own destiny. And that has a ripple effect, right? Especially for younger generations.
Huge ripple effect. You know, one of the research papers you shared, it highlighted how important it is for young Muslims to see themselves reflected in these success stories.
To see that they can achieve their dreams without having to compromise their values.
Exactly. When a young Muslim sees someone who looks like them launching a successful tech startup or building a global fashion brand, it plants a seed. It says, hey, I can do that too.
It creates a legacy of entrepreneurship, a path for future generations to follow.
And it goes beyond just the Muslim community. It taps into this larger movement of conscious consumerism, this desire to align your spending with your values.
Which is something we're seeing more and more of these days. People are realizing that every purchase is a vote, a statement about the kind of world they want to live in.
And that's what makes this movement so exciting. It's about so much more than just buying products or services. It's about making a statement.
It's about putting your money where your mouth is, supporting businesses that reflect your values, and creating a more just and equitable world.
Exactly. And I think that's something we can all get behind.
It's been incredible, this deep dive. Eye-opening, insightful, and honestly really inspiring. We've covered the why, the how, and the what's next to this movement. But there's so much more to explore, isn't there?
Always.
Yeah.
It's an ever-evolving landscape.
So to our listener, we encourage you to keep digging, keep exploring. You might be surprised at what you discover. Until next time, this has been your Deep Dive.